1490 WGCH, WGCH.com, anywhere. WGCH News Center time is 8:21. Rebecca Shambaugh, one of the country's leading experts on gender equity and inclusion. She's president of Shambaugh Leadership, a global leadership development organization whose mission is to develop high-performing, innovative, and inclusive leaders. She hosts a top business podcast available at Apple, iTunes, and Spotify, the show called Women Rise. And Becky joins us here on WGCH this morning. Good morning, Becky. How are you?
Hey, good morning. I'm well, thank you.
All right. You founded Women in Leadership Institute, one of the first coaching and development programs for women in the country. What has shifted or what is different now in your work with women in the workplace?
Yes, I founded Women in Leadership and Learning close to 2 decades ago when women in leadership development was kind of a hush-hush, if you will. But I have to say what's different, and this is a national, global representation of women, that since the pandemic, and that was kind of women have left the workforce, a lot of them due to, family constraints, childcare, home school teaching. It just wasn't possible to do both. But now what we're finding is that there was also an assumption that women were going to not be coming back to the workforce, and that would directly impact economy, employees, workforce. But now we're seeing a resurgence of women, which I think is a significant shift of women now that are between the ages of 24 and 54. In the latest report in June, women now represent 77.89% of a return. That's an all-time high for women to rebound back into the workforce. So I think the narrative that women will be depressed for the next years to come, I think, has been debunked. But I think along with that shift, women are not just putting their foot in the door and coming back to work, Tony. They're putting their whole selves back into the workplace, meaning that they're coming back as a project manager, a professional leader, executive, but they're also coming back as a mother, child care, taking care of elderly, being passionate about the community, things that they care about. So they're bringing their whole selves back to work. So, and that to me is a very positive, I think, indication that everyone did wake up and realize that there's an intersection between work and life. So the key for organizations is to really open up that door around flexibility, allowing men and women both to really practice that intersection of their whole lives versus just coming to work and identifying solely with that.
So what is your organization, Shambaugh Leadership, doing to address the shifts in the workplace for women and increase their engagement and enhance equitable opportunities?
Well, what we're doing is taking a deep dive into this. We've already had my research team conducting a major research study, tapping into women between, 1 years of service all the way up to 15 years of service. And we're really looking at a broad range of women in STEM, women in business, professional roles, to really dig into, what are some of the key areas, challenges that they're faced with now? What are some of their personal gaps around growth and development? What does the workplace look like now? What is it will take for them to really want to stay and be engaged and feel valued within the workplace? So we're refreshing that information and really getting the voice of those women from all walks of life that are in the workplace, and then coming up with some prescriptive solutions, both for women to navigate the new workforce, but also for organizations and their managers to do the same.
You mentioned women coming back into the workforce. Are they doing it in person or at home, or how is that working?
Well, that's a really great question. It's a combination, but more women are requesting to have the flexible work life so they can work in either a hybrid or a remote work environment. You're seeing a bit of a change that some organizations are saying that you have to come back full time. My view on that's a pretty quick trigger to pull. I don't think companies after 2 years of allowing people to work there, they've realized that the employees appreciate and want to stay home with their kids and want to try to organize themselves to make it work on both ends. So I think there needs to be some reassessments of this transition. But a lot of women want to come back to work, but it's a combination of, I think, coming in when they need to, but also being intentional about when they need to stay home and work as well, having that flexible workplace.
All right, you host the Women Rise podcast. Why'd you start it? What's the purpose? What have been some of the conversations you've had around leadership today and advice for women?
During COVID, I realized that myself included need fresh ideas. I know there will be a time where we're all going to have to reboot and to reset. So I wanted to, like many people, created a webcast called Women Rise that really helps to inspire people into new ways of thinking, creating that path forward from all walks of life and all dimensions of one's personal life. So I started this in the COVID, and it's still going on. And I bring in people that are visionaries who are having an impact in society, communities, executives who are having an impact around women and just culture and other business initiatives. And so it's been very inspirational, but it's very focused on what are things that I can do to reboot and to reset my personal and my professional life. It's meant for women, but it really brings in people from all genders and backgrounds to really tune in on some of these great tips and practices and storytelling.
And is the target women, or you mentioned women and men, in certain levels of management, or just anybody that's interested in advancing their careers?
It's really anybody who is looking at wanting to be a better manager, a better leader. How do I lead in this new dynamic, in this new workplace? How do I, as a woman, know my own sort of self-worth and value? And how do I navigate, and pull myself through, even though there are challenges? To executives, how do I create, a workplace that's equitable? How do I become more of a collaborative, inclusive manager that fully engages and better retains, top talent in the workforce? So that's a wide range of areas that it hits, men and women, but a lot of it funnels up to how can we better attract and retain that diverse workforce, and particularly as it relates to women and that wide range of women in the workforce.
All right. My guest has been Rebecca Shambaugh, Shambaugh Leadership, president of Shambaugh Leadership. And Becky, how can people get in touch with you and listen to the podcast?
They can go to any social media platform and just check out Women Rise, and they can go right to the podcast. They can also go to our website and listen to the recordings, learn more about how we are providing solutions and programs for leaders, for women and leaders who are reentering or entering into the workforce at www.shambaughleadership.com.
All right. Becky Shambaugh, thanks very much for a couple minutes this morning. Be well. Thank you.
Thank you.